Hello everyone. Hi, I'm your host Susan Lee McDonald and welcome back to my show, The INNERview. Yes, you saw me playing, but I'm really a novice. It'll be a huge comparison to the professional musician that we have on our show today. You know, music is a great way to communicate with the masses, and the pianist that we have today has traveled all over the world for over a decade, wowing audiences with his incredible classical and crossover music. We're going to meet none other than Maksim. Join me today.
World-renowned pianist Maksim is known for his passionate performances that are delivered flawlessly with speed and precision. Years later, he won accolades for his powerful performance of The Flight of the Bumblebee and received praise from the critics and public alike, who referred to his hands and fingers as a gift from God. Maksim has come to Korea once again to meet his loyal fans. Stay tuned to learn about his story and check out his amazing performances.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, so wonderful to meet you, Maksim.
Maksim, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm Susan. You know, it's so wonderful for you to be a part of my show. I'm such a huge fan of piano and you in particular, so thank you for coming. Awesome.
Nice to be here.
Well, let's go and check out where you'll be playing a little bit. So here we are.
Wow.
What do you think?
Looks fantastic.
It's beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
This used to
really
be
nice.
the first president of Korea's home back in the day, and now they've made it into a nice event hall.
Wow.
Would you mind testing it out and seeing
Yeah,
if everything's
that's fine.
okay? Okay.
Good.
Good?
Yeah,
Wonderful. So we can send him back home, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Did a good job, yeah.
Awesome. Well, now that we are almost ready to start the interview, we're going to go upstairs and kind of get ready. So will you join me?
Yeah.
Okay. How are you feeling? Are you adjusted to the jet lag and whatnot?
Not really, not this
Yeah.
time. I wasn't lucky. I mean, quite a bad jet lag I have.
Wow.
By the time I just hear, it's going to be time to go back to Europe.
I know, I can imagine.
Always like that.
So here we are, and we're going to get our cameras all set up here. So let's go have a seat.
Great.
Your seat will be over there on the left.
Okay, thanks.
And mine is over here. So what I normally like to do you feel comfortable?
Yeah, very.
Well, hello and welcome to the INNERview. I'm so happy that you're my guest today.
Thank you for having me. It's
Absolutely,
nice to be here.
absolutely. Well, you held your first concert in Korea in 2004, and you've been back at least 10 times, is that right?
More, I would say more. I've been coming maybe at least twice a year in these 10 years. My first time was 2003, so it's a lot of time.
Okay, so maybe 20 plus times.
Yeah.
My goodness. So how does it feel coming back to Korea each time?
But it's really nice. I spent a lot of time here, and I met so many, nice people who I work with, and they are very warm. And I had time to discover more about Korea and Korean culture, and I'm a big fan of Korean food. So it's always a pleasure to be back.
Yes, and you came to Korea for every year, twice a year, like you've said. And I'm curious what your first impression of Korea was like.
Well, I mean, The fans were really amazing, you know, and that's the other thing which I really like about Korea, because, you know, the fans are very loyal, you know, which in some other countries is not the case, because there's a lot of artists, you know, changing, and they, you know, switch from an artist to an artist. I have fans who I know for 10 years. The girls like Sunny, Bomi, you know, Olivia, I know these girls, and they were there 2003, and they stay all the time. So my first encounter with Korea was involved with, you know, really nice people and nice fans, you know, so my impression was immediate, really nice.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm sure that you have a ton of fans wherever you go. I mean, you've had some incredible success with not only your tours, but your many albums. And I imagine that each time you come here, you've got just a lot of people who want to hear you play. Now, you're on a national tour here in Korea, right?
Yes.
And I'm curious how it was, because it's kind of the tail end of it, yes?
We are coming to an end, yeah. This year I've been here with my band. I perform with the band Crossover Music, mostly pieces from my latest album, The Movies. And I must say it was fantastic, you know. I always say Korean fans are one of the most enthusiastic, and they create such an amazing atmosphere on concerts, you know, especially the one in Seoul, you know, where there was so many people and the reaction was amazing. So it does make a difference to an artist who is on stage, you know, when you have such a good reaction, it just feeds back on me, and then I want to give even more, and then the audience gives more, and this communication between us, it's always amazing here in Korea.
I find it fantastic that performers who are just world-class like yourself can perform so amazingly for the albums that you create, but once you're on stage, oh my gosh, the live performance is a whole other world of excitement. What do you think about your performances here in Korea that you've done?
But as I said, you know, it's very connected to the audience, you know, because if you have enthusiastic audience which gives you so much energy, then it reflects on my performance and my playing, you know, it just wakes me up, you know, even more. So, you know, I think they really enjoyed it here, and vice versa. I really enjoyed my time on stage.
That's fantastic. You know, Koreans are really crazy about your music, and I'm curious, what do you think it is? Because there are so many pianists who do come through Korea. However, you, I would arguably say, are one of the top, if not the top, kind of selling and kind of most kind of hot pianists that people want to go see. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, my music, what I do, crossover music, it's a bit different, you know, because it's not pure classical music. Maybe sometimes for younger generation and younger audience, sometimes classical music can be quite difficult and complex to listen, you know. But maybe in the way which I do it, you know, when I fuse it with like a modern style music, then maybe it becomes more approachable for them, you know. And I think maybe that's the way why especially young people, you know, like my kind of music, my crossover.
Definitely. There are a lot of different forms of crossover with different kinds of instruments. Would you like to explain a little bit about your type of crossover music?
In my case, I like to call it electro-pop, you know, something with electronic beats, you know. But because I like to explore, you know, different genres of music, so, you know, I had albums which were like more turned to crossover or a little bit more turned to classical side, or like a last one we did called The Movies. We just, you know, involved all the most famous pieces from the movies, you know, which is something which I never did before. But because I like to explore, for me, music doesn't have boundaries, you know, I just like to, you know, fuse what I believe it's good.
You have quite a repertoire for your tour, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about it.
Well, there are a couple of types of concert which I perform when I come, you know, to some countries, you know. Obviously, I'm a classical musician since I was 9, so one of the, you know, forms of the concerts are my classical solo recitals, you know. Sometimes I play classical music with an orchestra. Sometimes I play by myself crossover music, and sometimes, like this time, I play with the band, which looks like a pop concert, my crossover music. So I just enjoy the possibility of, you know, the possibilities which I have, you know, to perform all these different types, because I love them, you know, equally, all of these forms, you know.
Well, I know I'm a fan of your crossover music, and I insisted that we have you on the show because I wanted to see you perform live just in front of us. What do you think about your influence on the scene, with the crossover scene and just piano in general?
But I mean, that was kind of my point, which I always wanted to prove, you know, because when I was in college, you know, because I was, you know, under my teacher, you know, and another, obviously, academy, I wasn't allowed, you know, to dress or have tattoos because it wasn't the way to go, you know. But as soon as I stopped studying, and as soon as I became on my own, you know, I started to change my colors of my hair. And my point was, you know, because, you know, classical music is always treated as something very serious, and classical musicians have, you know, this stereotype that they are very, you know, serious black and white suits, you know, and I just wanted to show that it doesn't have to be the case, you know. You can dress like me or have a tattoo, but still playing classical music, and you know, it's not that, you know, conservative, you know. It can be a little bit more open. I always say, you know, classical music needs to you know, change the presentation. We need to change the presentation of classical music, you know. Classical concerts doesn't have to look like that, you know. They can look a bit more modern, but still, you know, presenting classical music.
Right.
I think that's very important for like 21st century, because we need to intrigue younger audience to get to classical venues.
How do you think it's possible for people who are kind of entrenched in kind of the more conservative way of thinking to open up their mind? What do you think they need?
Well, it's the double, you know, the double problem for me, because you need to, you know, I always, you know, had the need to show myself that I'm a good pianist even more, because, you know, they have doubts as soon as they see me, you know, because I don't look like a classical pianist.
Your performances leave such a strong impression on the audiences that attend, and it's not just a feast for the ears, it's a feast for the eyes. It's not just about incredible music that you're playing, but it's a real show. What do you do to kind of come up with the ideas for the lighting and all the different effects that kind of go on there too?
Well, normally before we go on the tour, you know, I work with people who are very good at what they do, and they are lighting designers, you know, and stage designers.
Yes.
And basically they come up with an idea, we have a meeting, and then obviously we go through all the things, you know. This is when I talk about my crossover concerts, you know, especially with the band, because, you know, it needs to look like a pop concert. There's loads of lights, you know, and that's the kind of music, and it goes well, you know, with the backing track and the music. But when it comes to classical concerts, you know, I don't have, you know, a lot going on stage, because I think it's going to distract my audience. You know, I have ambiental lights or maybe screen, and that's it. But I can't have, you know, moving lights on stage. I don't think it goes well with Liszt or Beethoven, which I play.
And you know, I imagine that that you do a lot of interviews and you have a super busy schedule. But how do you find time to just enjoy whatever city you're visiting? And you know, you're visiting here in Korea. You've gone to Daejeon and Daegu, Seoul, Busan. How do you enjoy and go out and see the city?
Through this year, last year, I had promoters who were really ambitious to show me the culture and the customs of Korea. So I was fortunate enough, you know, they took me to the Korean War Museum. We've been to Korean Traditional Village, and we traveled around Korea just for me to get to know, you know, the customs and actual people, and to meet more fans, you know. So I had the opportunity, you know, to have free time and get to know Korea much better.
That's fantastic. Did you enjoy touring
around? I really
around?
enjoyed it, yeah, because it's the first time that I actually, you know, have time to do this and to, you know, to interact with Korean people.
I can imagine it's not so easy to be able to take off that type of time, especially when you're on a tight schedule with your tour. So that's a real kind of time to
it was really refreshing,
relax and take some photos, right?
Yeah, for a change, you know, not
Yes.
to work, but just to do some really nice things.
And have some good barbecue, right?
Yeah, loud.
Definitely.
At a concert hall in Seongnam, Gyeonggi Province. I caught up with Maxim, who was busy going over every detail to make sure everything goes smoothly as planned at the actual concert. How does the rehearsal of a world-renowned crossover pianist differ from any other pianists? Maxim seemed resolute on stage, as if he were performing for a live audience.
Pirates, just the beginning. I just want to check, because I think that maybe the general level of backing track is really loud.
The intense and dynamic piano melody echoed across the hall, and the emotional sound and superb technique were truly astounding. He heated up the atmosphere with a passionate performance, pouring his heart and soul into each note he played. It was 30 minutes before the concert was about to kick off, and excitement filled the air as people began to fill up the seats. They all seemed thrilled to have the opportunity to see Maksim perform right in front of their eyes. In front of the concert hall, staff members were busy with a crowd of fans lining up to buy the world-renowned pianist's album and receive the brochure.
옛날부터 영상으로만 이제 봐서 노래는 좋은 건 알고 있죠. 근데 이제 딱 직접 봤을 때 그 느껴지는 느낌을 한번 느껴보고 싶었는데 이번에 느낄 수 있어서 좀 기대되고 있어요. 저는 어제 우연히 스타킹 보니까 그분이 나오더라고요. 연주가 되게 잘하신 것 같아요. 그래서 되게 기대하고 왔습니다. 非常期待你的演奏会。我想得到你的签名。
The star of the night made his much anticipated appearance on stage amid loud cheers and applause from the packed house. It's the unwavering love and support shown by his loyal fans that make the long, grueling hours of practice worthwhile. His performance always sounds different and never the same because of the different kind of energy he feeds on from the audience. His last performance of the night was met with loud applause, and the concert came to a close.
맨날 음악으로만 듣다가 직접 퍼포먼스 하는 거 같이 보니까 더 되게 웅장하고 더 좋았던 것 같아요.
그 손놀림이라던가 진짜 어떻게 사람이 저렇게 빨리 스피드하게 칠 수 있는가 이런 거에 대한 거나 음악이 너무 좋잖아요. 그래가지고 되게 감동을 많이 받았습니다.
The immense popularity of this world-class pianist was evident even after the concert. With the venue still brimming with fans of all ages, they spent quality time together, becoming one through their common passion for music. We look forward to seeing him again in Korea.
I imagine that that you do a lot of interviews and you have a super busy schedule, but how do you find time to just enjoy whatever city you're visiting? And you know, you're visiting here in Korea, you've gone to Daejeon and Daegu, Seoul, Busan. How do you enjoy and go out and see the city?
I don't. Very simple. But I mean, it's, you know, sometimes I come for the concerts and sometimes I come for the promotion. And I don't know which one is the busier, you know, because when I have promotion, maybe that's even busier because I have interviews all day.
Yes.
And when I have concerts, you know, I tend to practice a lot. So for example, I think tomorrow is the first day off and we'll go a little bit out, you know, in Seoul. But I mean, through this year, last year, I had promoters who were really ambitious to show me the culture and the customs of Korea. So I was fortunate enough, you know, they took me to the Korean War Museum. We've been to Korean Traditional Village and we traveled around Korea just for me to get to know, you know, the customs and actual people and to meet more fans, you know. So I had the opportunity, you know, to have free time and get to know Korea much better.
That's fantastic. Did you enjoy touring around?
I really enjoyed it, yeah, because it's the first time that I actually, you know, you know, have time to do this and to, you know, to interact with Korean people.
I can imagine it's not so easy to be able to take off that type of time, especially when you're on a tight schedule with your tour. So that's a real kind of time to
It was really refreshing,
relax
yeah.
and take some photos, right?
Yeah, for a change, you know,
Yes.
not to work, but just to do some really nice things.
And have some good barbecue, right?
Yeah, loud.
Definitely. What's your favorite kind of food?
Because I love meat, I love eating meat, you know, so like really good quality meat at Korean barbecue, you know, that's
Yes.
my thing.
Some good beef bulgogi.
Bulgogi, yeah.
Yeah. Do you like the pork too, the samgyeopsal?
Yeah. I prefer beef, but you know, I can take pork.
Very
and kimchi
good.
I like because I like spices, so it's really my kind of food.
Nice, nice. Do you think that it helps your performance at all to have a little bit of kimchi?
I don't think so, no, I think I shouldn't eat, you know. Normally I don't eat anything which is heavy and spicy before the show, actually.
Really?
Yeah, that's my teacher used to tell me all the time.
Oh,
when I was-
how does the spicy food affect playing?
I don't know. I mean, it's just, you know, I need to have something really light, you know, so it doesn't, I don't know what it does to me.
So you're a little bit calmer going in, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Maxim, you've performed all over the world, and I can see that you're not really nervous. You don't look nervous when you're performing. Do you ever have any kind of stage fright or anything that you're worried about before getting on stage?
I do have stage fright, you know. Normally, it's much more connected when I play classical concerts, because for me, classical are much more complex than crossover. It's a completely different way of performing. And I'm more nervous on the first couple of shows, you know, when, you know, I present piece for the first time or maybe second time. Later on, because you have 20, 30 concerts, you know, you just get used to it. But I think couple of first concerts, I have a little bit of stage fright, not too much.
I heard that you practice up to 8 hours a day. Is that right?
For this tour, I was preparing quite a lot.
Wow.
I practiced quite a lot.
I mean, that's an exhausting schedule for anyone to do any kind of work, but to be continually putting in that kind of energy into your art. How do you kind of get some rest for your hands or for your mind?
I mean, it's extremely exhausting because, you know, mentally it's very, you know, tiring, and physically, obviously, you know, to sit at one place 8 hours, it's very draining. But this is something which I'm used to do, you know, since I was a kid. You know,
yes.
You know, when it comes to classical music, it's all about practicing. So we are very disciplined to be, you know, hard workers if you want to succeed. If you don't want to be.
If you had to say that to get to a stage where someone is a professional pianist, how much of it is raw talent? How much of it is hard work? And if you had to break down a percentage, what would you say?
I don't know, maybe 80% work and 20 talent, you know. It's extremely difficult because competition is so harsh, you know, and there's no room for imperfections, you know, so everything needs to be perfect. On top, it needs to be, you know, with a brilliant talent and really different from everyone else. So it's really difficult.
Yeah. I imagine that when you were growing up and going through all these different competitions, it kind of creates a fire in you to even excel and be better than you were even the last time, but also be better than the people that you're competing with. I'd like to now hear a little bit about how you became this world-renowned pianist. And do you remember the first time that you ever played the piano?
I remember the first time, my first encounter with the piano was, I think I was 8. My best friend had a piano at his home, and I just, as a kid, was always trying to play this, you know, instrument. I was completely impressed by it, and by the age of 9, I, you know, persuaded my mom to enroll me in music school.
Wow.
So it was the other way around. Normally it's mothers who push children.
Yes. I know here in Korea, you probably know that you're probably not Korean if you haven't tried a piano or violin lesson. But for you, it was an inner drive from the start, yes?
It was inner drive, and for everyone it was really unusual because I come from a small town which, you know, doesn't have like a big, you know, cultural scene or a lot of concerts. None of the members of my family even listen to classical music, right? Let alone play.
Any musicians in your family?
No. They never listened to classical music, so, you know, everyone was, you know, very surprised where I get this, like, but I was so passionate about it, and I knew exactly that I'm going to do that, and it's like something which I knew always in my head, you know, I'm going to be a pianist, and that's it, you know, there was no question marks about that, you know. My mom understood it, my father said, okay, they didn't know where he came from. But
that's amazing. You know, it's amazing because a lot of kids, they grow up with different types of dreams. They want to become an astronaut, they want to become a firefighter, and so on and so forth. But the fact that you knew exactly what you wanted to do at that age shows that you had a real kind of intuitive sense that you were going to be in this path. And did you, at that age, know that you would be performing worldwide? Did you have a sense?
Yeah. I mean, I knew that this is something which I'm going to do in my life, you know. And even when I grew older, when I came to, you know, 15, 16, you know, and we never talked about it. That was the thing, you know, that's my profession, and that's it, you know.
When you were 12, you had your first concert, yes? I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
When I was 12, I had my first concert with an orchestra, yeah.
Yes,
my first little concert was when I was 9, actually, after the first year in the music school. And yeah, my first experience with an orchestra, it was some French orchestra who came to my hometown, and I was the performer playing Haydn concerto. And I remember I was so small, I could barely touch the pedals, you know, of the piano, but it was a big success and everyone was happy. My parents were so proud, my teacher, and I was too small to understand anything.
I bet. You know, the idea that most musicians have to start at a really young age is something that it seems like you've broken that mold, because a lot of musicians, violinists and drummers and whatnot, they start at, you know, age 3, 4. Did you find that starting later kind of set you back in any way?
Not really. I mean, I started late, but the thing is, I was jumping classes and I was putting classes together, because I always played pieces which are like 3 or 4 years in advance from age what I was. So I mean, I immediately caught up, you know, that Haydn concerto people don't play when they are 12, you know. So that's, you know, I didn't sense that in my education.
Wow. Well, it seems that that drive and that passion that you had at age 8 and 9 that drove you to want to take lessons just kind of erases the fact that most people think that you need to start earlier, but you prove that
definitely
wrong.
No. I think every child has to have room and space, you know, for children's playing, you know, and healthy, you know, childhood. Because when I was a kid, you know, I didn't practice much, you know, but that was the trouble, because I was using my talent, you know, because, you know, it took me a little time for someone who would take much longer time to learn something, and I knew that immediately. So you know, I enjoyed my childhood. You know, I played, you know, with my friends, and I had a normal childhood. You know,
that's such an important thing for someone who has such a special gift, because oftentimes those who are child prodigies, kind of like yourself, don't have a lot of friends. They don't have that normal childhood, and they become great at what their craft is, but the social aspect might be kind of lacking sometimes.
I'm not a big fan of that. I would prefer my style to have both.
Yes.
I mean, if you find the balance, you know, that's what's the point, you know, that's my, you know, logic in the life, you know. I always try to find the balance between work and happiness, and to be able to enjoy life, you know, and to be able to enjoy my time with my family and my friends. Otherwise, you know, it's pointless, you know, just to be there to work all the time, you know. Not for me.
Definitely. Well, it seems like your life is about a balance and blend. Even with doing crossover, it's bringing in all these different aspects of things that you love. Yes. In 1991, there was the Croatian War that lasted for about 4.5 years, and I understand that you lived in Croatia the entire time during the war, but still practiced, still continued on with your music. If you don't mind describing, what was that time like for you?
Well, I remember first time when we heard sirens, that was September 1991, and we knew what's happening, you know, because you know, there was a lot of talk. Serbs came very close to our city, and we heard the bombs in the background, you know, they were quite close. And we went to the shelter, which was in the basement of my house, and we didn't go out for 7 days, we didn't see the sun, and it was really heavily bombarded. We had average 1,000 grenades a day in my hometown, and I always say the not knowing what's happening is the worst thing, you know, because there were rumors that the Serbs are in the city and they are starting to kill people, going to the shelters and stuff like that. So it was really terrible, but the problem was the war was going on all the time, you know, and at one point, you know, as a human being, you have to continue to do something, because you can't be unproductive. That just kills you, you know.
Yes.
And I think every and each of one tried to find something to, you know, to carry away, kind of a living. We didn't have school at the time because obviously it was too dangerous to go to the school, and I think no one worked at some periods. And that's where my teacher and I, we decided, you know, to get together and to practice, because we decided to go on this competition, you know, which was, you know, the first competition which I ever encountered, and that was the driving force. You know, we practiced a lot.
So the war becoming a driving force for you to practice, and you already wanted to practice anyway. It's not like you were going to quit piano if there were no war, right? But that intensity of what was going on around you, and with what your parents must have been kind of worried about with you too. Were there times where when you were practicing there were bombs going off and you had to stay where you were practicing and you couldn't go back home or anything?
Oh yeah. I mean, all the time we had bombs all the time. At one point we had to leave the city because my parents felt that it's too dangerous and that you know, that they're going to destroy all the town. And we went on the island. We have a holiday house on the island, and we stayed there, but there was no school. I didn't have a piano or anything. And after 5 days, I realized that I can't, you know, stay there without the piano, and said to my mom, "Please don't be angry, but I can't stay here." And then I went to Šibenik just to play, you know, to play and meet my teacher for 1 day or 2 days. And then my mom was crying, you know, but you know, obviously she understood that that's something which I can't do, you know, and I can't be without. So, you know, at first she was angry and sad, but you know, she realized. That's it.
And I can completely understand why your mother would have been upset, you know, thinking that anything would happen to you.
It was much difficult for parents, you know, because they were worried more. I was 14, 15. I didn't, most of the time, I didn't know what's happening. I mean, it was dangerous, but I think parents were afraid much more. They were aware.
Well, with having to evacuate and leaving your home, and with so much kind of disruption that wasn't a typical situation, you seem to have made the best of it, and you knew that you wanted to pursue piano. Even still, it's something that you couldn't let go of. And when you were actually practicing, did it make it that much more special for that practicing time when you could get away to practice?
I don't know. I mean, probably reflects on my, you know, interpretation and my performance, you know, especially at the time, you know, because it was so risky, so dangerous, and so, you know.
Well, you came out of it all the better, and they say, you know, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
That's what I say always.
Right?
It made me a stronger person, I think, and it made me more determined to be what I want to be in my life, and that's pianist.
So, with that competition that you were preparing for, do you remember how it was that you prepared, and what was the song that you had ready for that performance?
We practiced so much, and I remember music school wasn't open, obviously, because you know, no one wanted to go to school. And me and my teacher, we used to have like lessons in the basement of the music school. I think every day, you know, because that was the only thing, you know, nothing was open and nothing was happening. And we were practicing so hard, and we came to Zagreb, and I was so scared, you know, because I came from a small town, you know, I've never been to competitions. And I only said, you know, to my teacher, I just don't want to be last, you know, because I don't want to, you know, to embarrass my family, la la la. And then I came, I performed, and they stopped the competition, and they announced me a winner immediately. And
really, wow!
I was in shock. My teacher was crying, you know, my mom was crying, and all of the Šibenik, you know, they found out immediately that I'm a winner, and it was one of the best memories in my life.
Wow, I'm getting goosebumps just even hearing you talk about that. Given how difficult things were in your country at that time, and to win that competition, what did it mean to you and to your family for you to have won that?
I think it was not just about the winning, you know, the competition and you know, opening the doors for my career, but I think Zagreb didn't have the war, you know, so when I came there, they all asked, you know, where is it coming from? You know, what's happening? Because they know it's hell in Šibenik, you know.
Yes.
Where did you practice and prepare, you know? So that was the first shock, and then obviously after I performed. But I think that it's just like, you know, it was the winning of the situation and the horrible, you know, environment where I was, you know, and no matter the circumstances, we were so determined, and we did it, you know.
That's incredible. I'm so glad for you that that was the result, but the fact that you had to endure, you know, such kind of challenges to get there really shows that you've got a very tough character.
Yeah, a really strong one, yeah.
You know, having lived through a war, and in modern times, not many people in a kind of first world, you know, or second world country tend to have lived through the terrors of what a war is like, and to have gone through a civil war really puts a different perspective on what is important. You know,
oh yeah, definitely.
You know what your priorities are.
Yes.
And you were saying earlier that you like to keep a balance of your work life and your family and friends. Is there something else that you see that you have a very kind of grounded and balanced perspective on something that maybe other musicians may not?
I don't know. I think it comes from the character of the individual. You know, I was always like that. You know, I always try to find the balance, and you know, as I said before, I think that's very important. You know, to feel happiness. You know, to be able to enjoy what you do. And I always, you know, said that I'm really lucky because I'm really successful at what I do, which is rare, especially in classical music. It's really hard path, and you know, to be on top, it's really difficult to get there. So I'm really lucky to be able, you know, to perform art, because it's a beautiful job. You know.
Definitely. In addition to performing different types of concerts, you've also had some music videos, yes? Do you have any favorite music videos that you've done?
I did so many. I mean, probably if I have to pick one, it will be the first one, the Flight of Bumblebee, because it, you know, it reflects the time which was so, you know, different in my life. You know, when I signed to EMI, when I signed to my manager, my first video, we shot it in Cuba, and everything started, and it was my biggest hit, my biggest single, the Flight of Bumblebee.
That's been such a popular piece that started from the 1900 when it was first written for the opera, and then kind of gone through all different kinds of changes. You know, people with the guitar have tried to do this, and violin, and everyone's done this. But there's something really special about it when it's done by the piano. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, it's the piece where the speed is the most important thing, obviously, you know, and someone who plays it, the goal is to play it really fast.
Yes.
But in the same time, you have to play it like really clear and quite quiet, which is a problem, because when you play it fast, you know, it's natural that you're going to play it loud. So keep it down in you know, in dynamics, and keep it up in the tempo. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite pieces, but to be able to play it in that short amount of time, the whole piece in that short amount of time, like you do, is something that only
a lot of practice.
After many, many hours of practice, yes.
Many years.
You became a star pianist in Croatia, and you started receiving a ton of accolades with your debut album. And I'm curious how your life changed once you stepped onto the world stage.
It's changed a lot, but I mean, it didn't become so hectic, you know, after me winning the piano competition, you know, because I entered the doors of world of classical music, so everyone knew about me, but it wasn't mainstream. It wasn't like in the media as much as when I, for example, signed with EMI and Mel Bush in London.
Yes.
Then my life completely changed, and then my privacy went away, and yeah, that was a life changer too.
Yeah.
That was my second life. I always say, you know, the two biggest events are my winning the competition, entering one world, and then signing, you know, to my manager Mel Bush.
Mel Bush is known, of course, throughout the world for being an incredible producer, and also for a lot of the flash and the special effects and the lighting and making it a show. What was it like to be able to work with someone like that? Because your shows were very different prior to meeting him, yes?
Yes, I mean, I tend to do, I did the classical music, but I tend to do like a different presentation of classical music. So I used to hire classical concert halls, and I used to have like a laser shows, you know, when I would used to perform like contemporary music or before, you know, something like that. So I was very experimental, I was very open, and that's why we had a mutual friend. He connected me to Mel Bush, and when I got this call, I knew who Mel Bush was, and I was so nervous, and I was so happy actually, and honored. And I lived in Paris, you know, and they came to meet me in Paris. I studied in Paris, and I remember that first meeting, you know, I performed to Mel, and Mel, after that, you know, he just said one sentence, you know, my search for pianist is finished, you know, and that's it. You know.
At the time, he was looking for a pianist.
For 5 years.
Yeah. And why do you think it was that your performance captivated him when no one else
I tend to be very energetic when I perform, I think, and that's something which, you know, people can relate quite easy, you know, because it's visual, so they can see, you know, maybe easier how I, you know, experience music which I perform.
And it doesn't hurt that you are, you know, very tall and handsome, and you know, many female fans, and you're incredible at the keys. I mean, your hands move so fast. I mean, it's incredible. And how long is your reach? How many keys?
CF 11.
That's quite a reach, yes?
Yeah. I have a big hand.
If you had to describe what your philosophy on music was, how would you describe that?
I mean, I don't have specific ultimate goals, you know. It's like, as I said, you know, I consider myself lucky to be doing this and to be able to explore, you know, different kinds of music, different styles of music. So I'm sure that in my future albums I will involve something which I've never did before, and that my directions will go maybe somewhere else, you know, maybe. But yeah, I would probably do a bit more classical in the future.
I see.
Because my last 2 years were a bit more concentrated on my crossover music. With
your talent and being able to just kind of switch back the different styles, you know, classical and crossover, not a lot of people feel comfortable with that. They feel more comfortable just being on one path. But the fact that you can be so flexible and be so good at either one really shows that you are open to new things. Do you think that you might be open to doing something that involves like a Korean element in it in the future, maybe in preparation for a future tour?
Possibly. I mean, we did use, like, for example, like on my album Movies, we have a song which was, you know, featured in like a, I don't know, it's a series of soap opera here who everyone knows, and this was like, and it includes like a lot of like Korean national traditional, you know, instruments. So this was a little thank you for all of my fans and their support here in Korea. So yeah, and I did one in China. So this is what I like to do, to explore, and especially the instruments, because they are very different from the instruments which we have.
Definitely, and tuning them is not always the easiest thing to the piano. Yes. Maxim, it seems like you are very much a friend and family man, and I understand that one of your tattoos has your daughter's name, Lilu, on it. Yeah,
this one. Yeah, it says Lilu.
Ah, wow. And she's now how old?
She's 8.
8 years old. So what is it like to be away from her for so much of the year? Because you're on tour quite a bit, yes?
I am, but we have It's not a rule, but I mean, I don't like to connect tours together because, for example, now we are away for a month, and I have another tour in China, which is a month, so we always separate it. So, you know, being away from her more than 3 or 4 weeks, it's quite difficult. So even if I come there for 2 or 3 days back to Croatia, that's fine. You know, but as long as I see her, we do a lot of Skype and stuff like that.
Oh, that's great. It's wonderful now that we have this kind of technology, right? The video chatting.
Just, it's so different.
We've heard your music be described as passionate, intense, energetic, and even sensual. So if you had to describe what your music was like in your words and how you could kind of want to portray your music, how would you describe it?
Well, exactly what you said. I mean, it was always something which is more energetic rather than like really slow and romantic. I think it reflects my temper and my character, I think. And even when I was a student, you know, on college, you know, I was always drawn to the pieces which were extremely complex and very passionate and powerful, you know. Like Liszt, Prokofiev, Rachmaninoff, these are my favorite composers. I would always go for something like very powerful.
Very grand. And when you play this type of music, what are you trying to bring to the audience? That's something maybe different that you only can bring.
I think all of us, you know, reproductive artists, you know, we have our own idea of interpretation and we all see one piece completely different. So I think it's hard to describe, you know, what exactly I tend to bring, you know, but it's always, you know, everyone, you know, has a different approach and a different idea.
So, last but not least, I do like to ask most of my guests, what does the piano mean to you?
Well, as I said, you know, I'm really lucky and happy, you know, to be able to, you know, to perform and to play, you know, something where I really love, you know, which is music, and you know, to see that a lot of people are appreciating what I do. I think I'm a very lucky person.
Great. Maksim, it's been such a pleasure to have you on my show and to be able to have, you know, a private concert as well, along with people in 180 countries watching you. And I imagine that wherever you go, you'll be, you know, widely received with a lot of love, and I wish all the best for you in the future. And I look forward to having you maybe in the future on my show again.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much.